Good evening and welcome to another episode of Be Inspired, a weekly show that we bring to you to showcase some of the amazing talent in the British Bangladeshi community. And this evening we are joined by another inspirational figure who I would say in the last 30 years that I've known him personally well, have got to become good friends, that there's no end to his talent, his vision, his drive, energetic, and more importantly, whatever he touches, it becomes a success story. I'm talking about no other than a wonderful brother, Atique Choudhury. So a lot of people will know as Mr. Yum Yum, the chairman of Jonamot newspaper, an all-round, energetic, fun-loving guy who is larger than life. I think, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time this evening to join us. I haven't done justice to your resume, but I've just said how wonderful you are. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself to our viewers?
Abdal, I'd like to say thank you very much for, being on your platform, which highlights the positive aspects of the British Bangladeshi community, which is essential for, the entrepreneurial Bangladeshis and people in our community and the younger generation especially. And I'd just like to say that, during this time of the coronavirus, it's very important to think about all the people in our community who've actually, passed away within a very short period of time. So we must think about them and pray for them.
I think, Mike, can I just and take that time to say, I know, you touched on that very beginning that I was going to touch on it towards the end, that recently you've lost a very valuable member of your team. And I'm very sorry for hear that, and the fact that you've also kept your time with us this evening means a lot to us. So I want to say, extend our condolence to your staff, your team, and to the member of staff who's to his family. So thank you so much for coming on to the show. I know it's a difficult time for you, so thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, a member of our team who's been with us for over 20 years passed away just yesterday. So, we pray for him and we pray for his departed soul.
I mean, absolutely.
Amen.
And that's what I'm going to come to talk about, which is you are a successful entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. You are a successful businessman to a lot of people. But for some of us who are very fortunate to know you quite well, we know that every aspect of your business, there's a sense of moral duty to the community, to the welfare of your staff, your team. I mean, this gentleman who sadly passed away, once again, he's been with you for 20 years. That's almost like a family, But look, let's sort of talk a little bit about Atique Choudhury, the person that most people read about, see about, hear about. I know you're very popular on social media as well. So let's go back 30. I mean, you don't look more than 21 most days, but let's go back 30 years. Where did it all start?
If we reverse the clock back 30 years ago, then we would be in Stoke Newington. But the early life really started in St Albans in Hertfordshire, where I was born. And I went to school in Hatfield. And from Hatfield, we went to live in St Albans. And I used to go to school called Chancellor School in Brooklands Park. And in our locality, there wasn't many Asian people or foreign people as such. There was just local people, So in terms of engagement with our community, because we were living outside, it was always, quite far away. But I used to remember coming on a weekend to a place called the Bangladesh Language School, which was on Queensbridge Road in Finsbury Park. And we used to practice our Bengali there. And after the third week of Bengali lessons, they were short of a badminton player to make a number of 4 with the parents. So they asked the children if anyone can play badminton, and I put my hand up, and suddenly I was on the badminton court. But the thing was, I was a school badminton player. So every Saturday they were looking forward to playing with me. And I've always kept, my parents have always encouraged us to be part of the community, to the point where we always sent money to Bangladesh to, I remember in the early days, properties we were buying, and we bought some buses for transportation, and we did, many other things that, my mother sort of donated money for cows and goats for families who were sort of not well off. And we've always kept that social aspect in everything that we do. And it's a point where on a regular basis, I do travel to Bangladesh, and my mother does as well. And when I travel, it's either with my mother or my father. But that's the early days of and
The
some
making of your I would say the ingredients, both from a social responsibility to what obviously your mum is very dynamic in a sense that, in fact, I look forward to interviewing her one day as well. Doing, like you said, making sure your roots are connected, your language connection, and the family tieship. But somewhere there, as you said, Stock Newington was your stomping ground. You effectively are Mr. Stock Newington, and I don't mean that in a disrespect to other people, but to those of us who've known you, you've had a flagship business there, which is part and parcel of the Stock Newington life. I'm talking about the legendary Yum Yum. I mean, tell us, how did that become? How did the Yum Yum idea come to you?
Well, we started off with our first restaurant in 1980, and it was a restaurant called Spice's Pure Indian Vegetarian Restaurant, which is a 28-cover restaurant. And we specialized in Indian vegetarian food, but home-cooked Indian vegetarian food. And we built that business up over a period of time. And from there, we had an idea of, I always used to go out to have Thai food. It was in the late 80s, there wasn't that many Thai restaurants in London itself. I think there was only a handful. And one of them was a Thai restaurant in Beecham Place in Knightsbridge. And I used to love going there and having their hot and sour soup and their spicy papaya salads with lots of, Thai curries with sticky rice. It was just the amazing flavors, because when you come from an Asian background where you're used to having lots of flavors and lots of taste, going for an Italian meal doesn't really fulfill the palate. With Thai food, it has that kind of catch, that dynamic, it's got all the flavors and all the textures that is similar to Bangladeshi food, and complements, especially when we go out. So I really fell in love with the cuisine. And then we had a few Thai staff who started working for us. And when we were decorating our dishes, we actually had Thai people who would, carve vegetables and fruits and add it to what we were doing. So early on, I developed a taste for Thai food. And then in the early 90s, it was 1990, I met up with Barbie, who was, and then between me and her, we decided, look, why not start a Thai restaurant? And really, it wasn't a business as such. It was really a hobby. Pick out the best chef, pick out the best wine supplier, pick out the best person to do the design and architecture. And it wasn't on a massive scale. It was on a very small local scale. And it was a 28-cover restaurant, which we started. And within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we had problems with the customers where they couldn't actually get in because it was just overbooked. And that's how, the restaurant started, and the idea of the restaurant. And all we did was kept to a very small menu and developed our menu with the textures and flavors and the taste from an authentic point of view. But it was a challenge at the beginning, because you have to remember, in the early 90s, again, there wasn't that many Thai restaurants. And the taste of Thai food, especially with the fish sauce and some of the ingredients, was very challenging to a lot of people because they weren't used to these tastes and flavors. I mean, I used to remember, stir frying some dishes where we would have it, let's say we'd have a curry dish, and the customer would say, excuse me, but I think your peas have gone off because they're bitten into it and the texture and the flavor is different. But what they didn't realize, it was actually Thai aubergines. A pea aubergine is quite different in texture. So it's all these challenging things. So we had to bring the spicing levels a bit down, so to develop the taste of the food with the customers. And it was a journey for us. It was a journey for the customers. And I think if we actually look back and see what we've achieved within 28 years, I would say that we've actually put Thai food on the high streets. We've been able to bridge that position, being able to make the cuisine into not for a minority of people who've been to Thailand or American expats, because they were the ones who really used to go out to the Thai restaurants, but the general public. And it became very, very popular throughout the country. And I remember being a part of the Thai Food Festival, because I was invited to the Thai Restaurant Association. We created an association with over 100 members within the M25, and it became a very powerful lobby for Thai food and Thai culture, because the King of Thailand requested that the restaurants in England get together as a group and promote the positivity of Thai culture. And we were part of that, not just in the UK, but he wanted that throughout the world. So they put a lot of effort and time, put the embassy behind us. And it was a very, very inspiring journey.
Well, this is very inspiring, because as a British Bangladeshi, fully fledged, part of the community, you're now, in a sense, the decree, as you say, from the King of Thailand to sort of make sure that his nation's food, the flavor, the kind of feel of the atmosphere in the restaurant, for that moment, those few hours that you're in the restaurants, that you feel, like you're getting the best of Thailand. And your restaurant, I mean, your flagship in the sense that, Yum Yum, the look and feel, the service, even to the minute details, it is of the utmost high standard. I mean, this is something both you and Bobby, take pride in, and your staff are also part and parcel of that. I mean, is this something sort of that you take, or is it, over the years, or it's just been your focus from day one?
I think if we actually look at it, it's been the focus from day one, to the point where we're so much into the fine detail. You'd see me in the vegetable market at 5 o'clock in the morning, picking out the best Thai herbs and vegetables. Because, for example, right now, the availability of Thai produce into London, it's so difficult, and it's a scramble. So, there are three big suppliers of Oriental herbs and vegetables in the market, and I'm there first thing, making sure that I pick up as much as possible, so that I keep the kitchen kitted out in terms of pea aubergines, baby aubergines, in terms of lemongrass, lime leaf, Chinese chives, morning glory, galanga. So it's constant, and keeping those really going, because if you have a green curry and you're missing the sweet basil, you're missing the pea or the baby aubergine, the actual flavors are lost. So it's all in the detail, and it's a passion behind what you're doing. You can't, take your eye off that passion. As soon as you do, the quality of what you've created starts going downwards.
Well, you've got a great team there. I've seen them in operation. I've seen them in action. A lot of people know about you through Yum Yum and the quality of food, but they also don't know about the fact that you diversified your business. And let's talk a little bit about property, because that's an area that you dabbled in and very successfully have accumulated a number of property. I mean, I know if you stop outside your Yum Yum restaurant, and there's a row of shops you've bought in, but you've also been able to support other people to get into business. So the reason I'm trying to bring in the conversation is you bought a number of shops, but you've also given other people the opportunity to start their first business. I mean, just talk a little bit about your sort of diversifying, but also about giving others a chance.
Well, we started in real estate from the early days, because my family comes from a property background. So we've always bought residential and commercial properties, and we developed that side to the point where we've got a substantial holding in the area, and it's very important to bring in the right businesses that would add value to Stoke Newington, and supporting those businesses are essential. Let's say we're in this current situation, which is a very difficult time for a lot of businesses. So, we keep an eye on our tenants, make sure that their well-being is looked after, and that, currently we are developing a grey kitchen in Stoke Newington, which will encompass around 9 kitchens. And again, in those 9 kitchens, we're looking for different operators to go in, but something really interesting, not the normal sort of high street offering. It'll be something quite special. So in that project, I have my son, Rishi, who's 23 years old. And it's important to have a look at the next generation of businesses and how they will adapt to the current climate where expenses are going up, and a lot of the business that is done is actually done on social media. So the whole thinking and the setup and the focus on costs, and the focus on social media of how your product is displayed in all the different mediums. It's not just on Facebook. You're looking at Instagram. You're looking at operators like Uber, Deliveroo, Just Eat, all those mediums, and how to get the interaction between the customer and the platform is so essential in the new world that we're living in right now.
Interesting, you brought in, the family dynamics. As you know, in the introduction, I mentioned the fact that both your mum is a very avid businesswoman, and it's always a delight talking to her. We will come to talk about your father, who is an exceptionally wonderful man towards the end. But you mentioned your son, Rishi, who is young, budding entrepreneur, but give him that level of responsibility that you've also had at your age. It sort of, will better and make him adapt and make him challenging for him, obviously. But it's also the kind of, as you said, the next generation. As much as you spent your time 5 o'clock in the morning single-handedly picking up those best fresh product, his generation or his generations are not only doing it, but have to capture it for the social media. So not only are you tasting it with your taste bud, your mouth, but you're also your eye is also your gateway. So if the footage, the platform, the right delivery company is not there to deliver, I mean, is that so? It's like, I've got this phrase where somebody asked me, somebody recently said this to me, is that Abdal, I've seen you with some young cool people, and not necessarily mean I'm not young. I said, listen, when I was young, when I looked up to certain people, I associated myself with certain people. Your good friend Amaral will tell you that one of his relatives was a mentor to me. But now that I've got to an age where now I think, in order to sort of be in tune with the next generation, I need to also give my time to the next generation who are coming up. So you're effectively, as a living example, giving your son that business opportunity, but not only that, for him to also develop and bring his generation together in this new platform you're creating. Talk us a little bit about the family dynamics in terms of, there's the son, there's the wife, there's your mum, who's also a property entrepreneur. How does a normal Sunday afternoon meal happen in your family?
A Sunday evening meal would be very interesting, where it's the topic of the week, what has been happening. And, it's very interesting to have the different views from the different generations and the different thinking. It gets very, very interesting. And, we spend a lot of good time together. My dad is, a very essential part of that as well. And we're blessed to have him at the age of 100 years old. And, we've had, some great times, together. And now we're in a lockdown in London, because usually people are flying in different places, but we seem to have been here for quite a few months together. So
this must be the longest period of time. This must be the longest period of time that you've actually been in London in the last 10 years, I reckon.
Yeah, I've literally been here since January. So from January to where we are now in July, I've been based in London, which is a blessing in disguise, because I've other than what has happened with the coronavirus and how it's hit the community and the different things that has happened, but I really enjoyed this part of my life because it's been a lesson, a very important lesson.
Atique, in terms of obviously the COVID situation has made you first grounded in the UK for the last 6 months, where you do spend a lot of your time abroad in business. However, being here and seeing the COVID situation has also made you adapt your business. What lessons have you learned, and what can you share with the uncertainty about COVID? Right, we could have a second wave. What has made you sort of more prepared and ready for the future?
I think, in terms of where we are right now, it's since March, the whole paradigm of thinking and behavior and the spending culture of people has changed totally. And we've seen that progression where, let's say, in the restaurant sector, people who used to go out to have meals in restaurants is just totally decimated. Restaurants were closed. A lot of restaurants and hospitality industry was hit in a very bad way. And I think looking at the current position, takeaways and deliveries have gone up in a massive way, while sit down, has been hit. And it'll be interesting to see how things move on to the next level and how the changes are. But we're focusing our business on the takeaway delivery side because, we've actually learned a very good lesson over the period of time and perfected the art of getting award-winning cuisine into containers and being able to seal it within time, getting it bagged in recyclable bags, looking at cutlery, looking at the kind of offering that we're doing and how to minimize costs and operating at this level. And we've had very loyal customers who supported us over the years, coming back and ordering. But I think the other essential thing is that the goodwill of a business is essential. And what we did was we during the period of the coronavirus, we at the beginning we were cooking food for the frontline services. So we were delivering food to the North Middlesex, Royal London, the Homerton Hospital, our local hospital, to the fire stations, police stations. We cooked over 3,000 meals during that period. And, you can imagine having a big premises like that, while a lot of people were thinking, oh my God, they're swallowing and going, I wonder what's going to happen. We, at that moment, thought, hold on, what can we do to help? Because this is a time of giving. And, it is essential for businesses to gain the the goodwill of the local area, and that's what we did. We actually went out there with a small team of people, and we were just doing it. And
I witnessed that. Obviously, as I said, I'm as a fan, a supporter, a friend. I see your stuff on social media, and I saw. I mean, but there you go. Once again, you've taken a very difficult situation. You turned it positively by doing the humanitarian thing to do, which is to support our front line. The same people that are who've been loyal customers, be it the emergency services who come to your place to celebrate family event or a nice evening out. So have you gone back to them? But the thing you touched on there, which I hope people at home have paid attention to, is that, well, you diversified and looked at options around delivery. So you've said the magic word is about packaging, recycling. So it's not like, that's what makes Atique special, that you could have just said, I get a nice new bag, I've got a new container, but you're also looking at the ethical, the kind of the environmental friendly, and that's what a longevity business does, and that's what you do. I mean, does that come to you naturally, or do you sort of think, how do I be one step ahead of the game?
I always look at the curve and see where the curve is going. And as the curve takes its shape, you predict a position and place yourself in that curve. So you are there. Like at this moment in time, we're building 9 kitchens for takeaway and delivery. And we're thinking about the actual offering, the wiring, the cold rooms, the storerooms, the ice dumps, how the social media will work, how the delivery drivers will come in. We're putting in a chef's table of 10 to 15 people, where a lot of the operators can use that to highlight their food and create social media and invite special guests or sell tickets for events. So it's a whole thing, a whole chemistry of what we're doing. And coming from that background for 40 years gives us the ability to actually set it up in a very tight way where the delivery will be tight, and people, when they take a unit of that nature, it gives them the best platform to succeed in this current environment.
Well, thank you for that. We look forward to seeing and hopefully sampling some of that, the 9 different outlets that you will be going live soon. Let's talk a little bit about, Stoke Newington, in these early days. As a British Bangladeshi with a foothold in, it's very glamorous now. It wasn't so 30 years ago, right? But you've brought that sense of panache into the area. Why Stoke Newington? As a British Bangladeshi, you've got to come to Brick Lane. You've got to go to, Wembley, South London. Why Stoke Newington?
It was a very interesting story. We used to go on the weekend to a place called the Bangladesh Institute, the Bengali Institute in York Street. And a family friend had a restaurant in Stoke Newington where he had a problem. He was a barrister, and his staff had an argument with a customer, and they decided to throw chili powder and spices at the customer and have a fight. So the restaurant was closed, and the barrister, who is a very eminent barrister in Lincoln's Inn, had decided to offload his interest, and his partners wanted to sell as well. So my mother said, "I'll buy it," and she decided to buy a restaurant in Stoke Newington, and do something with it. At that time, we had a Eastern European delicatessen in Hackney Road, Bethnal Green, and we decided to go into the restaurant sector. So that way, you can actually choose your customers rather than the customers choose your offering. So it was a good way of moving into something better, more fulfilling. And my mother, she is a vegetarian, and she decided to open a vegetarian restaurant. So we were one of the first Indian vegetarian restaurants, because most of the places either were cafes or just doing buffets in the late 70s. You'd remember places like Cranks, where they were selling things like cauliflower and cheese, and people with sandals. And it wasn't really for the public. So when we did our place up, it was a red velvet with a black velvet with a red trim. And it looked like the inside of a TR7 with a gold writing, Spices Pure Indian Vegetarian Restaurant. And we developed that business from the early days. And it was, every third shop, I remember, in Stoke Newington, Church Street, was actually empty. And most of the houses around here were squatted. So, if you went to King's Cross and said, "Can I have a
taxi ride?"
Try to catch a black taxi, they said, "Mate, I'm not going there because I'm not going to get a return journey." In those days. And it was quite rough. Every weekend there was fights in the pubs. It was a totally different Stoke Newington. It was quite.
But as Stoke Newington has changed, and you've been there, a flag bearer for the communities. Your venues host many charity events. Your local MP is a big fan of yours. I know that personally. You've helped, as they said, the regeneration has come and gone. But Yum, your wonderful establishment has been the torchbearer, has been the forefront of all that regeneration and taken the community with it. And as you've now diversified and opened this new 9 outlet kitchen for new businesses to come in, for your son to kind of bring in the next generation of entrepreneurs under his guidance or with him, this is going to be another next chapter. What is it that I'm sure my viewers want to know is, when Atique Bhai gets up, what drives him? Apart from the fact, the Saturday morning about your beloved Arsenal, which we'll come to in a minute. But
absolutely,
let's talk about the Atique Choudhury, the entrepreneur. When he gets up in the morning, when he has all these properties, has all these businesses both here and abroad, what is it that drives you?
I think the ethics is very important, and the discipline of life, and being able to do things in the right way. So, we came from very humble beginnings, and our motivation and drive is to always strive to do good things. We have a large team of people who work with us, and as we touched upon earlier, like members of the family. So, and it's always evolving. We're getting new people coming into our business, and, we always have different ideas going through. So, getting up and, how do you say, I'll start off with a organic cider vinegar with some water, and take my time and think about things early in the morning, and then get into my routine. I have a gym in where I stay. I like to work out and get myself fit, clear my mind, and usually my day is actually planned a day ahead. I usually plan my day in the nighttime so that the next day everything goes according to the routine, and that's how we are trained and brought up to be in the right frame of mind, prepared in the right way, and that's what we pass on to the next generation.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that wonderful tip. Now, before I want to talk about something amazing, which is, let's talk a little bit about your love for Arsenal, because as a businessman, I think this is the only bit of business venture that doesn't really pay off that well. I mean, I talk about your team, right? I mean, as a Liverpool fan this year,
Well,
I mean, what
that's
can
paid
I
off
say?
massively.
I mean, yeah, it's an investment, but obviously we know you're a keen badminton player. You talked about your morning routines and stuff. I think some people. I want to bring this into the conversation, is that you strive to do well, but you sort of lose the kind of what's important, like health, friendship, family, and enjoying. But because I know you on social media, and in fact, we when this is lockdown is over, you and I are going to go to that wonderful. I won't name the barber, but we will go for that wonderful Turkish barber experience. But you enjoy life, and that's a good thing. I've never seen you in 30 years looking down, as in like some people feel stressed and down. You don't. You look relatively always at ease, at calm, and very spontaneous. And you like a party. I think there's a balance to be had, right? Obviously, apart from your Arsenal probably not doing so well and making you a little bit
Well,
everything.
I wouldn't say that, because we've got the FA Cup final coming, and let's see.
I know.
If we win that,
my
then
son
we're through to the European.
Yeah, my son reminded me this morning, as you know, he's an Arsenal fan. But no, it's about striking a balance. What advice would you give to a budding entrepreneur or somebody who is already, and obviously COVID doesn't help, but finding a balance? What's your secret to a balance?
I think balance is very important, to have good people around you. The balance that is needed for a successful life is to really have the close people around you, and you have to be able to engage with them, and don't close yourself off in a way that you're sort of in a mode of going out there trying to do things just by yourself, because one hand can't clap, it needs two hands. So having a good partner for life is very essential. A good relationship with your parents is essential. A good relationship with your friends, with your customers, with your suppliers. In fact, when you get up, think about positive things that will drive you forward, to deal with tackling any issues and whatever needs to be done in a positive way. And that's what gets results. But balance in life is so essential, in terms of food, diet, sleep, being able to relax with the right kind of people in the right kind of environment. I mean, I praise the British Bangladeshi society that we have in the UK, that they've managed to create amazing networks between them, that in London, or wherever you are in England, there's never a shortage of different kind of events happening where you can meet up with people, and it's certainly an amazing release where you can share stories with each other and spend some good quality time catching up with people from all different backgrounds, which is essential.
And this really neatly goes into my next point, which is that we talked about you as the early man, the businessman, the giving, but one of the things that people don't necessarily equate to, unless you're a regular reader of the most prominent British Bangladeshi newspaper, Journal, that you are the chairman, of this great publishing house with some amazing people behind it for the last many years. I mean, and I want to bring this because, as I said, your mother's an amazing businesswoman. I mean, she is a driving force to a lot of your success. But your father, I mean, I hope for those who know you well, know this amazing father you have. I mean, to every son, the father is their icon. But your father is an icon to many of us. I'm truly blessed to call him Chacha, Dobir Chacha, as he is very fondly now known, who at the age of 100, right? So you gave a tip earlier about drinking, vinegar in the morning with hot bit of water. I'm sure you could Chacha could share some more of his tips about his wonderful life. But you were instrumental in recently when your father, approaching the age of 100, decided that he will take inspiration from Sir Thomas now, and he will walk the steps of his apartment, in his garden, communal garden, and he had raised an incredible amount of money. I mean, it started off few. I remember doing that voice message to some of our friends saying, Dobishek is doing this, and guys, can we all kind of chip in a few quid and reach his target? And within a few days, he beat that target. Within sort of few hours, he reached his target. Within a few days, what are we now? I mean, I've lost count, but at the end of Ramadan,
all in all, we're in for around 280, 300,000 pounds, which he's raised between all the different platforms.
Wow!
And if we look at the numbers of times he's actually walked his garden, we passed over 700 to 800 times. He's past that, because every morning he gets up, he actually walks his garden. I was with him late. I felt quite bad visiting him late, and very positive. His mind is very sharp, and he was having, because he's fasting at the moment because of our religious time coming. So he was having some Bangladeshi sweet, and I said to my dad, I said, "Look, you can't have shandesh in the middle of the night." He said, "Nah, ita khaile swab hoibe." So I said, "Okay, Dad, let's test your blood pressure." So we got the blood pressure machine out, and he was 118 over 67 with a 59 heartbeat, which for any, let's say, 40-year-old would be very proud of. Yeah, so this is how he is,
Yeah. No, I remember you said he's very sharp. I remember we were in your restaurant for Nasbai's event back in March, I think it was, before lockdown, and he came and sat with us, and he's so sharp. He absolutely is spot on. His conversation. He's a very poetic man. He can instantly come out with a poem. But this idea of steps, walking, I mean, thanks to, obviously, he did all the hard work around walking. Sure. You did all the creative work. I'm sure your son Rishi was involved, the kind of social media exposure, both national, international media, both mainstream as well as community media, some of the Bengali TV channels. Everybody was sort of mesmerized by his drive, his energy in the month of Ramadan. Is this something that he's fully aware? Obviously, as I said, he's very sharp, but is he fully aware of the global response and the attraction that he's had?
I don't think so. That's the honest truth, because it sort of evolved with this thing where we were heading towards a lockdown, and my concern was that I had to isolate my father. I have a carer who looks after my father, so the carer was isolated as well, so that they can be an item to make sure that there was no issues. And I actually implemented that before the lockdown. So he was in self-isolation, and I would say, look, what can we do to keep him busy? And it was constantly going through my mind. And he was looking at Sir Tom Moore on television, going backwards and forwards in his garden. He said, "Look, why can't we do this?" I said, "Abba, if you want to do this, Just let me know. I mean, can you do it 50 times? He says, what do you mean 50 times? Extra Warikutwari.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You want to do it 100 times? Go ahead. Yeah. We'll organize it and I'll get Rishi to put a Just Giving page and, we'll put it on our social media and reach out to a few friends that we have and family friends and go out there and see what happens. So that was the idea. That's how the whole thing started. And as soon as we put that together, then I had Fahan Bhai from Channel S. He said, Atique, I think, like, what do you think about putting some publicity behind it? And we're doing something called the Ramadan Family Commitment, which is going out to 30 different charities in 52 different countries. If you do that, then I thought about it. I said, yeah, great idea, because obviously we thought about him doing the walking up and down, but we didn't think about once the money is raised, what it would do, because that's another issue in its own if it's not utilized in the right way. We've got to maximize that potential. So
Mm.
then when Fahan Bhai suggested that, I said, perfect. And I put it to my dad. My dad said, huh? Asho, Kori. Yeah. So we started that. And I think the first bit we did, the target was £1,000. And I think we hit that within a few hours.
Mm.
It just carried on reeling forward because we were all indoors. Nobody was going out. It was my dad going up and down. And I was there taking a few photographs, taking a few videos, putting it on social media. And then S Channel came. They bought a drone, put it over the place, and then put the cameras and everything out and gave it a big part of what they did. So it just went from a very small little idea into something which took pace. And, I thought I'd keep my dad busy and keep him focused in doing something, but I ended up sort of spending more time with that because it was constant things. People wanted to come and see my dad. There was different film crews. We had two BBC crews at one time. It started off with one crew, then it was ITV, Sky Television, Al Jazeera. Quite a lot of all these different networks were just coming in left and right. It was amazing,
No,
a real amazing time.
absolutely was amazing. And when that day when Thursday night was the clap for the heroes, and when BBC decided to sort of come and film your father, and thanks to you, for your kind invitation, both myself and the mayor of Tower Hamlets, we both came, and he was just going, and the fact that he was fasting at 8 o'clock in the evening, 1 hour to go before iftar, he was still strong. He was still sharp. He, on the spot, he made he said some wonderful sort of poetic words to the mayor. And even I remember mayor, as we were walking back, he was like, gosh, he's very fit as a fiddle. I'm like, yeah, of course he is. So look, it's an amazing achievement. I mean, this is what I mean. I wanted to sort of finish off by saying, what a remarkable story, both from yourself, your family, and the fact that you touched on to the next generation, Rishi, your son, kind of, learning from his daddy, learning from his mum and dad, and bringing all that energy to the next chapter, the third generation of Choudhurys in Stoke Newington, doing it for Stoke Newington and beyond. Atique Bhai, I want to finish off by asking you to kind of give some words to our viewers about, to sort of that positiveness that you have, that you live your life by, that will hopefully inspire the next generation to sort of do better. So over to you.
Well, I think, Abdal Bhai, we have to really look at our parents who came here during very difficult times. A lot of British Bangladeshis came in here in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when it was a totally different England, and the contribution they made to British society has just been amazing. And we really have to look at that in a very positive way and look at ourselves and see how we can add value to that. I think the British Bangladeshi society has gained a lot of respect in the UK, not only in the UK, but throughout the world. So, this is the journey that we're on, and all these groups that meet up on a regular basis. There's a lot of very positive things coming out. I go to events where I see young British Bangladeshis who, in education, in business, in finance, in public life, They're doing amazing work, and I look forward to the next generation.
Atique bhai, thank you so much. Viewers, you've been listening to this amazing, remarkable achievement of Atique Choudhury, a social entrepreneur, a foodie, an all-round fantastic guy. You know, I'm very proud to call him a friend, and the story towards the end about his remarkable 100-year-old father who has, like Sir Thomas, been walking the steps to raise money over almost £300,000 for good causes as part of the wider Channel S Ramadan fundraising initiative. If you've enjoyed this show, please stay, watch us again next week, where we'll have another inspirational guest talking to us. Once again, I want to thank our sponsors, J4S, for supporting Be Inspired. I hope you feel inspired by our guest. Until next time we meet, stay well, stay tuned. Good night.